And it is a good morning. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth. And in the morning, I had to do the tap dance all myself because Melody is going to be a little tardy. She's having some issues there at the house, and she said I'm going to be a little bit late. So we're going to get started without her. It is Open Mic Friday. Your calls are welcome. We'll talk about almost anything you want to talk about at 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. I just saw an article come across as we were actually going on the air, and it says there is a shooter at a Trump resort, and he has been identified. It says the suspect who yelled anti-Trump sentiments and opened fire at the Trump National Doral Golf Club on Friday morning has been identified. According to the police, 42-year-old Doral resident Jonathan Oddi, or Oddi, it's O-D-D-I, entered the resort, draped an American flag over the counter, and began spraying bullets into the lobby. It says the guy was ready for war. He was waiting for our officers to come in. Miami-Dade Police Director Juan Perez told local radio station WIOD there. It said Oddi was reportedly yelling and spewing some information about President Trump, anti-Trump sentiments. Police were alerted to an active shooter around 1:30 a.m. That's pretty early in a resort, isn't it? And when they arrived on scene, they exchanged gunfire with Oddi, or Oddi, however you want to pronounce that, and eventually took him down. He is in custody and is being treated at the hospital for gunshot wounds. It appears he was trying to engage our police officers in some type of ambush-style attack. He did succeed, and he did lose. That's the bottom line. It says he then added that, in my opinion, they probably saved a lot of lives today because it could have gone a lot worse. One officer sustained minor injuries during the incident, but is in good condition. So the crazies are out there. They are out there. Now, I wonder if the left will complain about that. I've got an article here. The young people, that are marching for gun control. And I had that article before I ever saw this other because that just came up as we were going on the air. But this is a young woman, and she is sitting there on the panel with David Hogg. We've all seen David Hogg, and he's been quite the cameraman lately. And her comment is, it's just cheaper to take away the guns that aren't imperative to living in America. We don't need an AR-15 to protect yourself in the bedroom from a robber at night. If you don't need she again says, you don't need an AR-15 to have fun at a shooting range. Go join the Army if you want to have fun shooting off a weapon and serve and she makes an a little colorful word here, country. She says, excuse my language. When I was reading this little article, I wrote at the top of it that they don't teach English. Everybody has to have the curse words. Nobody can say anything without the F word or the GD or whatever. They can't seem to talk without it. So I also put in here they don't apparently teach English in the public schools. So will this same woman that's complaining about the AR-15s, is she going to complain about this guy that's an anti-Trumper? Or will we hear anything about it? Oh, I'm sure we will. He'll be the hero in some people's eyes. The young man here, David Hogg, he's about as clueless as they come and being used. I mean, it's just obvious that the left is using this kid. And he's just soaking it all up. He can't get enough camera time, and he's an angry man. He's an angry young man. He claims here, now just think about this now, all of the media time that he has had, he could have had anybody by his side. Anybody he wanted to have by his side, he could have had there. But he's going off on a racial issue. He says, my school is about 25% black, from what I can recall, and about, I believe, 50% white. They're amazing people, but that didn't get covered the same because it's a poor community and it's a community that's mostly people of color. It's disgusting. What's he talking about? If he doesn't think they're getting a voice, why doesn't he have them standing with him? And that community didn't appear to be a poor community to me in the pictures. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. It's happened. I have been wrong before. These young people are being used, and like I said, history's not being taught in the public schools, and we're raising a bunch of brown shirts, chasing socialism, confused about what the Second Amendment means or what it is, because even the socialists know in Sal Alinsky's Rules for Radicals that Second Amendment is there to protect the people from the government. Bottom line. Nobody expected you needed permission to protect yourself from a robber or a rapist or a murderer. But back in the day of the revolution, we did need protection from the king. And if you see what's going on today in the media, yeah, a lot of it's a distraction, but if you see what's going on today in the media, you could see how corrupt, how they are. They're anything but transparent. I had an article here. It's coming out of Oregon. The Oregon State Governor there, Kate Brown. You know, transparent. You hear that word a lot. Well, it's become very transparent that the politicians have a lot to hide. It says, during her first 2 terms, our audit revealed Governor Kate Brown redacted nearly, are you sitting down, 4,000 items from her official state calendar. I believe we have, Melody has joined us. Melody, are you doing all right? Oh, maybe she's not joined us. I thought she had.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Did you have it muted?
Who, moi? I never thought my worst enemy in the world would be the mute button.
It could also be your friend. It could also be your friend. Well, we're glad to have you. So far, I'll catch you up to date. So far, I saw breaking news where there was a shooter in Florida at one of the Trump resorts. Yeah. They have him in custody. He's being treated for his gunshot wounds. And nobody else. We have one officer that was injured, but not seriously, and he's being treated for his. And I've been talking about, I had an article about that David Hogue and some young woman that was on a panel with him, and they were discussing, and she was saying, you don't need an AR-15 to shoot in your bedroom to shoot a robber or a thief, and you don't need it. You don't need the AR-15 to go have fun at a shooting range. She says, if you want to do that, go join in the army or the military. She used some very colorful words, and I believe that we don't teach history in school, so they don't know what the Second Amendment's about, and they don't teach English either because they can't seem to get their language. She did say, excuse my language, but. So I was pointing out that in the radical rules for radicals for the social state, by Sal Alinsky, that the socialists absolutely positively know what the Second Amendment is for because they state it in that point, and it is take away the guns so they can't defend themselves against the government. And so it's very obvious. And then I went into this, Melody, where the transparency of this governor in Oregon, she has redacted. Marked through black magic marker. You can't see this. 4,000 items from her official state calendar. 4,000 items. That's transparent, isn't it?
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Well, we hear these things, and we hear all this other stuff going on with how they have tried to. I mean, it looks like it's going to be divulged I don't know, with President Trump. But one after the other, we see these guys, these elected politicians across the way, whether it's a governor, a senator, or a representative, or whoever it is, redacting or having to pay off. They're making a big deal out of stormy weather, and yet how much money is it that $15 million from Congress that's missing because they've paid off for their sins, been trying to quiet people, So how is that any different than Stormy?
Oh, I know. And, I don't think it's so much. I mean, I think everybody is, pretty much came to the conclusion of, the history, his relationships, that he has his personal relationships and so forth. And, it's really a distraction, ladies and gentlemen, with what's really going on. And also, but, if it was close to the campaign, and I don't know how you can view it, but normally anytime there's some sort of a campaign finance or campaign situation that was done in a wrong manner, it's a fine. Usually they get a fine, and get their fingers a little smacked and don't do this again, and then you move on the way. Like he's the only one that has ever breached the campaign finance rules. Every one of them probably has to some degree, one way or another, whether it's small or minor, but this just has a little bit more of a patent place type
oh my gosh
story behind it. So, but hey, so those who really know what's going on, it's just a distraction.
Well, it is, but
there have been indictments and other, a lot of his campaign people, they have pleaded guilty. There are indictments. So, I
don't think anybody's clean, but I do think there's a lot of blackmailing and that going on. That if you do this, we'll go easy on you, or threatening their families. I just don't put it back. It says in this article about Kate Brown, the governor of Oregon, that she used taxpayer funds to pay her $537 annual membership fee to the Oregon State Bar. And she received $55,000 from the Native American tribe because they were opposing the construction of a casino that would rival the tribe's own casino. I mean, it just goes on and on what they're doing. Talk about blackmail and getting paid off to do this and taking bribes. I mean, good grief. Why do we keep electing these people?
and you know what? And it was, it used to be at one point in time that even, if they hired an illegal alien, I mean, that ruined their career. So, I mean, it is a sign of, it is sort of a sign of where we are, in our morals of this country anymore. It just does, things like that just don't matter anymore, and it should matter to some degree.
And what went on yesterday when President Donald Trump said what he did about MS-13. Now, I had a producer on CSC Talk Radio. He's no longer there, but he had been a police officer in Phoenix, Arizona. He had fought these guys. And he says, I'm telling you what,
they're nasty.
They are vicious animals. So the Dems and the media are defending them. They made this big deal about waterboarding. But what does MS-13 do? They cut off heads, they cut off hands, they torture, they burn, they rape, they mutilate. It's just horrible what these people do. And but they're just misunderstood, and we shouldn't. Everyone's a human being.
It truly is it's just not this gang. I mean, you'll find that in many of these drug, not all of these drug kingpins and kingpins or whatever you want to call them are all MS-13 gang members. I mean, I remember our motorcycle group, the Hells Angels. They did some pretty nasty stuff too, and there wasn't anything ever done about, No,
you didn't want to run into them, did you?
No, I mean, they did some really nasty things, just as bad. But that doesn't mean we should condone what's going on here, and it doesn't mean that if somebody calls them for what they truly are, animals, that they should be criticized for it.
Absolutely not. And these are here illegally. We need to get rid of them. We're going into a break. Your calls are welcome. It is Open Mic Friday. We have Melody with that. I'm so glad she's here. 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. And we will be right back.
Since the beginning of the United States, kings have sought it. Nations have fought for it. It has been traded.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
I have an announcement. I'm so excited. Melody, remember a few months ago, we were talking about the Barbie dolls?
How could I forget?
One of our listeners anonymously
how sweet.
sent me a Barbie doll, and it is the Amelia Earhart Barbie doll, and I'm so excited about it. She's so pretty. She's got her little aviator jacket on and her little puffy pants. What do you call those? I don't know, riding pants or something, in her boots, and a map. She's holding a map. I don't think it did her any good, but she's holding a map.
Isn't that special? That is very special. We really do have the best listeners, and they just, we got the best listeners, and I feel we're so blessed to have them as listeners, and it's just incredible.
We're very blessed. We're very, very blessed.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff going on, and some of it.
I have something.
Good.
I do my job.
Yay! When you show up.
Well, this was announced late last night. This is from the Weekly Standard, so I'm not quite sure, how much of it can actually be done. But supposedly, and maybe you already spoke about this, Trump is supposed to cut Planned Parenthood funding, and is supposed to make the announcement. Well, no, he's supposed to make the announcement today.
Oh. And how is he going to do?
Well, let me.
Okay.
On today, let me tell you about what the Weekly Standard said.
Okay. I want pins and needles. I'm going to play with my Barbie doll while you do that. Okay.
The Trump administration will announce a proposed rule to cut taxpayer funding to abortionists like Planned Parenthood under Title X, and that's the program that allows the $260 million annually in the federal funding for contraception and other family planning initiatives. The proposal would require a bright line of physical as well as financial separation between Title X programs and any program or facility where abortion is performed, supported or referred for as a method of family planning. And this is a Trump administration that has told the Weekly Standard. There is the 1970 law establishing Title X states, none of the funds appropriated under this title shall be used in programs where abortion is a method of family planning. But in the 70s and 80s, the law was interpreted to allow Title X programs to refer patients for abortions, be co-located with abortion clinics, and lobby for pro-abortion policies, so long as federal dollars did not directly fund abortions. In 1988, President Reagan's Secretary of Health and Human Services issued regulations to end these practices that blurred the line between the funding contraception and the promoting of abortion. And, of course, in 88, that regulation was challenged in court and never enforced, but it was upheld by the Supreme Court in a 5-4 decision in the case Russ versus Sullivan. By the time the abortionists might have actually lost their Title X funds, Bill Clinton took over and killed the Reagan regulation, a policy that has remained in effect to this day. The anti-abortion regulation wasn't reinstated by the George W. Bush administration. So, unlike the Reagan regulation, the proposal will not prohibit counseling for clients about abortion, but neither will it include the current potentially illegal mandate that projects must counsel and refer for abortion. This proposal does not necessarily defund Planned Parenthood as long as they're willing to disentangle taxpayer funds from abortion. Well, that's not going to work very well, so what's the point?
Well, in other words, they can use it if they're distributing birth control pills, but not abortions, I guess, is what that means.
And you have to rely on the trust and honesty of Planned Parenthood to say that it is separate.
Yeah, because you can't go and film them.
Fine line.
Can't go film them. That's.
Hey,
well, he's trying. You've got to give him that.
In an election year, I guess everything will be released to make it look.
He's trying.
Like.
That's more than we can say about Congress. They're not trying. They're just hiding it all. It's making me mad. All right, we've got Tom in Michigan. Tom, what's on your mind today?
I was going to talk about the IRS, but, Irwin Schiff, he died in federal prison. He got locked up for filing zero returns. I read his book, The Great Income Tax Hoax, and I researched it, and he's absolutely correct that this income tax is unconstitutional according to the Supreme Court. The thing with the 1040 is he filed the 1040, and then if they disagreed, they only had 3 years to disagree with them. But then after a while they caught on to that, and there's a couple, and I hear on a lot of these shows, a lot of these people advertising for IRS problems, and they're telling people how they can take away, your house and everything else. But, that I was going to give people some code sections where, there is property exempt from levy, and there's also statutes of limitations. Starting at 26 USC 6334 as property exempt from levy. And personal residences are exempt if on small collections under 5,000. But even if the collection is for more, they still have to go get a order from a magistrate or district court judge. Then there's also a 10-year statute of limitations on collections. That's 6502. That's section 6502. 26 USC. The way they worded it says the collection has to be done within 10 years after the assessment of the tax. And, to my knowledge, we've never actually found an actual where the IRS did a lawful assessment. There's Section 6020. It's returns prepared by the Secretary. The Secretary means the Secretary of the Treasury. That's Section 7701 definitions. But and Irwin used to talk about this, and that the Secretary of the Treasury is the only other person authorized to do the return or assessment other than, the individual taxpayer. So the IRS comes along and, they do their phony assessment without authority. And, I mean, that's a whole other argument. But, the thing is that there's a lot of things they can do. Like, I know they take people's bank accounts. I know they guarantee people's wages because of their policies. Employers and banks will just go along with them, and they'll just turn over your money and they won't give it back. But there are some things here, like I said, personal residences and things like that, where they'd have to get a court order. You can, anybody who is having problems, if they go through read the whole chapter that applies to you, where starting at 6501 is their limitations, has the statutes of limitations, and then about 6334, the property that's exempt, but it probably starts at 6331. The whole thing of the socialism, where now we have all this income tax, where it wasn't, the founding fathers didn't want to have a direct tax on people's income, and that would it's like a direct tax is a tax that's directly on you. It's if I buy from a factory, if I'm a distributor or something, I can buy direct from a factory. But if I'm just a regular customer, I have to buy from a source. Everybody pretty much knows that. But when they wrote the 16th Amendment, they wrote it. It applies to income from whatever source. And in the Brushhaber case, they clearly said that the income tax, the 16th Amendment income tax, is a tax on a source of income. So when you're the source, it's direct, hands down, and that's probably why I have about a 3-inch stack of letters that the IRS hasn't responded to. I write them and ask them for what's the actual liability statute for the tax that they say I owe, and they won't reply. They run on policy instead of the law. So,
well, we know that you mentioned. I appreciate your call. You know that you mentioned that it's socialism, and we know that's absolutely the truth. And it's it's part of the Communist Manifesto, and it's part of the radical rules for socialist state. And so we know that that's true. Appreciate your call, Tom. Thank you so much for reminding us. Can't remember all those codes. I can't write all that down. So we have Neil.
People really need to do your own research also.
You need to do your own research.
You need to do your own research.
That's right. We have Neil from Missouri. Neil?
Yes, I was calling about this in response to Tom's income tax thing. 16th Amendment's got nothing to do with the income tax. Income tax is levied on people who are operating as agents of foreign corporations. Now, the IRS represents a foreign corporation, which is the Federal Reserve, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the International Monetary Fund. It's a corporation hired by the U.S. government to implement monetary policy by loaning them their notes, which they then issue into circulation. Okay, if you use a Federal Reserve note, by law, you're operating as an agent of a foreign corporation, and you fall under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Okay, that's all it's got to do with it. Quit using notes if you don't want to pay the tax. It's just that simple. 16th Amendment is irrelevant. U.S. Supreme Court has ruled a dozen times on the issue that the 16th Amendment is irrelevant. It said the 16th Amendment gave the U.S. government no new taxing powers. Has nothing to do with the IRS or the income tax. It's the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which is where the IRS gets their power. Title 26 is simply how they implement the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And they keep them separate in order to hide what they're doing from the people. I mean, the information's there if you search it out, but they don't want the general public to know that the tax attaches to the use of the paper. And the reason then come take your car and come take your house and anything else they want to take is because the assumption is, or the presumption is, that when they go to court and they file against you, is that you have used a Federal Reserve note to obtain that property. And if you use a Federal Reserve note to acquire property, the property doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the Federal Reserve because they're the issuers of the note. So, get all your major purchases, get a receipt that says paid in coin. That way, when you go into court, you can rebut the presumption that you use a Federal Reserve note. So, no, Judge, look, see, I got this receipt. It says paid in coin. I didn't use a Federal Reserve note to buy that car. That car belongs to me. I paid for it with U.S. government-issued coins, not Federal Reserve notes.
All right. We'll get it straight one of these days, won't we, Neil? I appreciate the call.
I hope people do. Oh, the other thing is money orders and checks. If you notice that money orders and checks are denominated in dollars, doesn't say anything about Federal Reserve notes on money orders and checks. But if you go cash a check, make sure you put on the back cashed in coin and then your signature under that. So that if the IRS tries to use that check against you, claiming you acquired Federal Reserve notes, therefore you must be spending Federal Reserve notes, all you got to do is make them flip it over. Look at the back of the check, Judge.
All right. Interesting. All right. Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it. We're a mess, We're really in a mess. We've been fooled so many times, Melody, just so many times that, and it goes way back to when they tried to start all this, because man is corrupt. This isn't anything new. It's just getting escalated and getting more evident to us, but it's nothing new that they are corrupt. So.
Well, the world is corrupt, and man is corrupt, and you're absolutely correct. Yeah. Mankind is, and we got to keep fighting the fight and
doing the best we can.
Doing the best we can.
My old boss used to say, "I'm doing the best I can with the tools I got." Whether you got good tools or bad tools, it's the tools you got. I have an article here, too, and this is kind of in a different direction. Speaking of money, but it's still in a different direction. And I guess President Donald Trump was in a meeting, and he was making comment once again. He's still promising to hold these NATO people, these countries that aren't paying their just dues, to pay up. And he called out Germany. And one guy was really appreciative of what he was saying, and we'll just see what happens. It says it's impacting allies because now all allies are increasing defense spending. No allies are cutting their budgets, according to this particular article. It's Newsmax, and it doesn't tell who wrote it. No, they got it from Thomas Reuters. So anyway, it's just another thing that he's been trying to do, and I hadn't heard anything about this for a while. They were all upset with him here several months back for, offending everybody, telling them they have to pay. Well, that's what they sign an agreement to do, and then they walk off and make the United States pay it all. So it's interesting anyway.
Well, whose fault is it? Why does the United States pay it all, Who cares if the other ones quit paying it? Quit paying the UN, quit paying all these other places that
I agree. I agree.
We just keep sending the money. More money, more money, more money. But that's what keeps the system going. That's what keeps the world floating. So until the funds begin to cut back, but we're in a place anymore that is pretty difficult to do.
It is. Well, we have Joe in Arkansas. Joe, how are you today?
Oh, I'm still getting by. How are you?
I'm getting by, too. It's Friday.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. We've gotten by until Friday so far. Yeah. I found what Tom from Michigan and what Neil from Missouri had to say. Very, very, very interesting. I thank them for the calls. And here's something else I'd like to throw into the mix while we're talking about the subject, and that's okay. I think it's Section 6020B of the IRS code that says if somebody doesn't file a return that's required to be filed, the Secretary of the Treasury is authorized to file it for them. I think Tom from Michigan brought that up. And now in Pete Henderson's book, Cracking the Code, he points out that in the IRS Special Agent's Handbook, there's a list of returns required to be filed that the Secretary of the Treasury can file for a person if the person doesn't, required to file a return doesn't file them. And he says that the 1040 income tax form is not among the required returns to be filed that the Secretary of the Treasury is authorized to file for a person if they don't file them. So that's another interesting little bit of information I'd like to throw in there. You know, this would seem to indicate that, that there is not a legal requirement to file the 1040, as Tom from Michigan was pointing out. So that might be something somebody would be interested to look into if they're a serious researcher on the subject. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Joe. Sweet to the point there. 6020B is what he called that particular one. I hate to just change subject, but I don't have anything personally on that today. But we have the people in the state of California. This came out on Wednesday. Of course, they are fighting back. Not everyone in California is on board with the sanctuary city and the sanctuary state. So they are fighting back, and they're doing the best they can to stand up, and they're defending President Donald Trump. And this is a California State Assemblywoman, Melissa Melendez. She does happen to be a Republican, and she's I don't know if you saw it, but they had some kind of town meeting, for lack of a better word to call it. And I don't know if that was the same thing as what this particular article is talking about, but I saw the other on TV, and they had a pretty good crowd there that were against the sanctuary city. They had a few protesters that were there too in support of it. But I think it's like some of the other things in this nation that we talk about. The ones that we're hearing, they're not the majority. The majority of people are not abortion activists. The majority of people are not about doing some of these things that the minority wants you to believe is something that we have to do. I don't believe the majority of the American people are for open borders. I think it's a ruse, and we're led to believe through the media that we are the ones that are in the wrong and don't know what we're talking about. And just like defending, they made a big deal out of this waterboarding issue that took place after 9/11 to get information. It's a form of torture. It's not a form of torture that mutilates or anything. It just scares you, makes you think you're drowning when you're not, and then you talk. I'm not defending it necessarily. I'm just saying what it is. And then we have these gangs like MS-13, and they're defending them when we know that they rape, murder, mutilate, decapitate, torture, slow death their victims, and they stand up and defend them, the illegals here in this nation, and go after this woman that I know. I'm not saying that I'm defending her or what she did, but what she did was lawful. She was told to do it by her superiors with the waterboarding. And I'm thinking, well, so they really are for torture if it actually kills you, because that's what MS-13 does. And it's just that we're led to believe so many foolish things, and they make absolutely no sense. And I know you know this, Melody. They'll say one thing on one hand and then do another on the other. So here we spent how many weeks talking about how horrible torture is, and Americans don't stand for torture, and we don't do that, and blah, blah, blah. And then yesterday they defend MS-13. It's crazy. Anyway.
It really is. It really is. That's why I stick to finances.
Well, that's crazy, too.
That.
What's going on there, by the way?
There was a report that came out. It's called the Alice Project. Now, I'm not a fan at all of United Way. But the numbers that they released, even if they're closely correct, it shows just where we are as an economy, even though we see the Dow Jones and all these the paper markets doing record highs and so forth, which is just a psychological it's just basically the psychological numbers that make people think that the economy is doing well. But this report that was released yesterday was a study that nearly 51 million households don't earn enough to afford a monthly budget that includes housing, food, child care, health care, transportation. And the funniest thing of this report, they actually added a cell phone to that list. It's just like, oh, good grief. A cell phone is just as important as, food and a roof over your head. It's like maybe that's part of the problem.
It has become a staple in our lives. You remember when microwaves were... Not everybody had a microwave. My mother didn't want a microwave. My dad wanted a microwave. And now you just can't hardly function without your microwave because you get so used to, nuking stuff. And we're a spoiled bunch of people. It doesn't take us long to think that this is what we have to have. So that was part of this that was included in the study. Food is important, child care, health care, transportation, and a cell phone. But this is according to 43% of households. That's 43% of households in the United States. So we have 50 million households, and that's 43%. The figure includes the 16.1 million households living in poverty, as well as the 34.7 million families that they have dubbed as ALICE, Asset Limited, Income Constrained Employed. So these are people that are employed, working, and they still can't afford housing, food, health care, telephone, transportation, and so forth. This group makes less than what's needed to survive in the modern economy. Despite seemingly positive economic signs, the data shows that the financial hardship is still a pervasive problem, and California, New Mexico, and Hawaii have the largest share of struggling families at 49% each. North Dakota has the lowest at 32%. Many of these folks are the nation's child care workers, health care aides, office assistants, store clerks who work low-paying jobs and have little savings. Some 66% of jobs in the U.S. pay less than $20 an hour. And the study also drilled down to the county level. So the report goes on. I believe we're heading into a break.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit DiscountGoldandSilverTrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
So that's, as things are getting better, I'm just wondering why.
Well, it's just because the dollar purchases less, pretty much. Wages are not rising, and your dollars continues to purchase less and less and less. And you have a lot of these, I would assume a lot of these, even though they classified some of these as low-paying jobs and have little savings, I'm sure there's they don't say they're specifically looking at, they say all Americans, so I'm assuming you got many of those that are getting a government check. And again, that's another reason why our unemployment rate's so low. I mean, we have a record number of people on food stamps and welfare and so forth. I mean, these people used to work. So if you take them out of the market, naturally you're going to have your unemployment rate drop to some degree because you're not dealing with the same pool of workers. But the sad thing is you have people working, trying to make a living and trying to 66% of jobs in the U.S. pay less than $20 an hour. To me, $20 an hour is a lot considering the types of jobs in this country. I can't imagine paying $20 for, a store clerk, a retail person. But that's what you need in order to live in today's world. Why? Because we're on a fiat currency, and your dollar is purchasing less and less. So I thought that was kind of an interesting report. So, we hear just how great this economy is humming along, and yet people they're just not making it. There's a big divide, there's a big gap, and I'm not talking about the 1%. I'm talking about people that are out there working. And
they are struggling.
They're struggling.
They are struggling.
And with higher gasoline prices coming our way, health care is not going down. None of the problems truly are being fixed to help the people. And so it's when is it going to change? How are they going to change it to make it better for folks? Well, I think folks are going to have to change too. Perhaps they don't need a cell phone, or, maybe they can find, search out for a little bit different child care. The one lady that helps me, the one who just had the baby, she was talking to me about she was looking for a place to put her for daycare, for just an afternoon.
Yeah,
and they wanted like $1,300 a month.
Yeah.
$1,300 a month.
I just got some breaking news that just came across the computer. It says that there is shots fired at a Santa Fe high school in Santa Fe, Texas. There's a lockdown due to active shooter. Did you already know this?
I saw a little headline, and it wasn't red or anything, so I just figured.
It says authorities were reportedly called to Santa Fe school after about 8 o'clock this morning. The suspect has been taken into custody, according to assistant principal of the school. There are reportedly several injuries which have not been made clear at this time. This morning, an incident occurred at the high school involving an active shooter. The situation is active, but has been contained. There have been confirmed injuries. Details will be released as we receive updated information. Law enforcement will continue to secure the building and initiate all emergency management protocols to release and move students to another location. All other campuses are operating under their regular schedules. At this time, students from the high school are being transported by Santa Fe Independent School District transportation to the Alamo Gym, located at, and it gives the address for that. Parents may reunite with their students at that location. The district will continue to keep us updated as information is available. Safety communications are our top priority. So, been an active morning. A shooter in Florida and a shooter at a high school in Texas.
Actually, where it first showed the report of that, they took it off. So, which is kind of interesting. That's why I didn't pay much attention to it. But yeah, I mean, it certainly is.
This one is coming from. This is coming from the Daily Caller here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's. Well, we know the fight that
what
they
did we
want.
say about the world? Yeah, we do know that. We know what we're going to hear about now, aren't we? For the one in Florida.
Going into a Memorial Day weekend. Of course, that's next week. But and I just want to remind the listeners too, because someone said to me, I was talking about that this morning program. Monday is our last day, and for this hour. But financial survival, and I don't want people to think that because we're not doing the 10 o'clock that the other programs are not airing. They are. You know, there's no changes to financial survival. We're going to be there at 4 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to replay at 8. They replay it again at 6 or 7 in the morning. And so that's not going to change. It's only this program. I'm going to continue to be on Beth's program twice a month. So, and who knows, you might hear us pop up a little bit later on under a new name called The Two. So who knows? Not the View.
You never
but
know. You never know. And CSC Talk Radio is on every day, Monday through Friday, right after this hour from 10:06 to 11. You have to change your shortwave dial to 12.160, or you can go to my website and see where I'm on local stations in your area. I'm on about 20-some affiliates across 12 states. So you check that out at csctalkradio.com. Go to ggcoins.com and keep in touch with us. We're not going away. We just had to take a break from this hour.
Yes. So I don't want you to get confused. And on Monday, since that will be our 200th day, and it will be the last day. And we do have a caller in Kevin, so we should probably go to him. But we're really going to encourage your calls on Monday. So
absolutely.
For those of you who haven't called in before, you have all weekend to stir up your courage to give us a call on Monday.
It'll be your day. Kevin from Ohio. Kevin, how are you today?
Oh, just fine. Hope you all are well.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for all your efforts. And this is probably close to Melody. I miss Dr. Stan Monteith a whole bunch.
I do too.
And Beth Ann too. Can you remember? I don't remember exactly how he always started his broadcast, but it was about illusion and delusion or king, and that's really what we see with Satan's covering the eyes and the ears of the people. And I have to muse because I read a lot of history, and one of the best books that Stan Monteith directed me to was called Fire in the Minds of Men, The Origins of the Revolutionary Faith. And that's what it really is. It's ever since the French Revolution, we've been at war. And Dr. Stan harped on that all the time. In his book by James Billington, he was a librarian in the Library of Congress, wrote this book. And it's just a repeat over and over since the French Revolution, all the socialist movements and all the counters to them. And it just amazing to read that we just keep going through the same cycles.
We do.
And that's facts. And I just wanted to bring that up.
I have his saying here, bringing you the story behind the story, the news behind the news, hoping to convince you that reality is usually scoffed at and illusion is usually king. But in the battle for the survival of Western civilization, it will be reality and not illusion or delusion that will determine the future will bring, or what the future will bring. So, and that was Dr. Stanley Monteith.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.